to take this moment to thank everybody for coming out on this beautiful day to visit with us in fellowship here in the Canyon restaurant. And as you know, I was the MLA for Chilliwack Hope for 13 great months.
Woo!
And I always loved working with the community of Hope, visiting Hope. Anything I did here has always been fantastic. And my riding association hasn't forgotten Hope. We had an event just recently at the Hope Station House celebrating Marjorie, our former president, who's been a lifelong member of the NDP, and it was really an enjoyable experience. And I'm happy to see Mayor Susan Johnson here today, along with Area Director Dennis Adamson. So it is my pleasure to introduce our new leader. I want to warn John of one thing. I just heard Chris Gadsden is going to film us and it's going to be in high def. So I don't know if that's positive or not, because I've heard high def can show all the imperfections. So yeah, I see you're hiding behind me.
Yes, I am.
We are being recorded. When I was MLA for 13 months, I had the honor of being thrust in between the whip and the House Leader. And that was quite intimidating until I got to know them. And John Horgan was the House Leader at the time. And such a fantastic person to work with. Smart, attractive, good-witted, Irish. I think practically twins, actually.
Irish about yourself?
So it is my honor to welcome John Horgan to the Riding of Hope, who has been aptly named by the press our happy warrior for the party. And well, here he is, John Horgan.
Woo! Thank you, Sister Mahoney. Oh, Mahoney, it's good to be here in the heart of Ireland and have a little bit of time to talk to you today about things and this and that. Houghton, isn't it? How do you do? How do you do? Nice to see you. So I'm Irish, if you hadn't picked that up. Thank you very much for the able introduction. I have to tell you, you might think that I'm a little bit hoarse and that my voice may give out, but my friend Seamus and I have been traveling since Prince George. At about, I think it was just outside of Princeton, he says, why don't we see if you can not talk for 5 minutes? And I made it for 6 minutes, but that was it. I had to start talking again. I was tapping on the side of the door, and he said, no, you can talk now. So I have this affliction. I went to County Cork, where my father came from, to Canada to make a better life for himself and his family, an Irish immigrant. And I went back to Cork, and Blarney Castle is just on the outskirts of County Cork. Did you kiss the Blarney Stone? As did I, and I have not stopped talking ever since then, except for 6 minutes today, somewhere between Princeton and Hope. So it's a great privilege to be here today. I've been traveling around, going to constituencies that we no longer hold, and I want to also acknowledge my friend Harry Lally from up the canyon. I've been going to Prince George, Williams Lake, Quesnel, 100 Mile. I met with Charlie Wise, who was our once elected and then not elected MLA. I went into Kamloops, and we had a very large crowd in Kamloops. I think it was heading towards 80 people, again, on a very hot. I picked the hottest week of the summer to go into the interior of British Columbia, and as a coastal dweller, that's difficult for me. I was born on Vancouver Island, so I was born with a sea breeze, and I'm always uncomfortable when I get too far away from the ocean. But it's been a very warm reception, not just in terms of the weather, but also the new Democrats that I've been coming upon. And the good news, ladies and gentlemen, is that there is hope not just here, but in other parts of British Columbia, about what we can do over the next 3 years to take back the government of BC, to implement the policies, and to bring forward good government again for the people of BC, not just for that narrow band of interests that tend to circle around the corporate elites that are either Socret or Liberal or Socret or whatever they may be on any given day. And I'm very encouraged by that. Now, it's been a long, difficult year. Harry and Gwen can attest to the profound disappointment personally that we had last May, but I think it was a collective disappointment. And being Irish, I suffered from a fairly good dose of melancholy right after the defeat. But we had to go right into the legislature, and so we were going up against a rejuvenated Liberal Party, a bunch of new faces, I have to say, not young faces, but new faces on the Liberal side. Many people who were talked into running assuming that they weren't going to win. And to illustrate that, I was the House Leader before the election, and Mike DeYoung was the House Leader for the government, and I went into his office to wish him well, and he's been almost a 20-year member, and it's just the decent thing to do. Good luck, Mr. DeYoung, we'll see you later on. And he was packing up a box, and we talked and chatted over this box, and we went away and we had the campaign, and there was every expectation that we were going to form the government, but we didn't. And I came back to the legislature, and I went in. I was again the House Leader, and DeYoung was again the House Leader. And I went into his office, and there he was with that box, and he was unpacking it. And he said, "I didn't see that coming." And I said, "Well, welcome to my world, Mike." And neither did we. But we had to keep going nonetheless. And the good news, again, I'm trying to find the positives of what was a profoundly disappointing evening. And it was just an evening. That's the thing to remember. We were ahead in the polls. We were ahead in communities. We had Penticton. We were going to win for the first time in 30 years. We were going to win in the Boundary Country. We were going to win in Prince George and Cornell. We were going to win everywhere until I counted the votes. And as I've been traveling around, and I'm going to open up for questions, certainly when I stop talking, and Harry, maybe you can take the role of speaker, and when you think I've had enough, you can give me the nod or the hook. But we have on our side of the house a really exciting group of people. David Eby, who is this big, beat Christy Clark. He's as sharp as a whip, and he's in his mid-30s. Selena Robinson, who is this big, and I've got a picture, I'll pass it around, the long and the short of it, I say. Selena Robinson comes from Coquitlam, and she is as excited about being an MLA as Gwen was when she first arrived. She can't get enough work to do, very excited about just being there. That's exciting for the party. That's rejuvenation with the long and the short of it. Jane Shen, the first ever Korean Canadian elected in our parliament in her early 30s. Jen Rice on the North Coast, early 30s. Spencer Chandler Herbert. I always say he's wearing short pants still. He's starting to be a bit annoyed about that because he's been elected 3 times now, but he's just in his early 30s. Rob Fleming, early 40s. So you look through our group of people, and we are a younger generation coming forward, and that's the good news, ladies and gentlemen, is that we have rejuvenated, even though we weren't successful in terms of forming the government. So what do we do from here? In the lead up to the renewal of leadership, when Adrian decided that he was going to step down and give an opportunity for new blood, I said that's a great idea, and I encouraged younger people to come forward. I encouraged Nathan Cullen, who is now our federal finance critic. He was the House Leader, doing very good work. Again, a young man, dynamic. I'm sure Nathan's been through here. You've seen him, or you've seen him on television. He has, in his mind, a calling for federal politics, and he declined to run for the leadership. Gregor Robertson, who I thought very successful mayor of Vancouver. There's someone we could bring in. We do tend to bring mayors of Vancouver back. Mike Hartford being a good example of that. But Gregor had his road set for him, and he wanted to stay in municipal politics. And David Eby, as I suggested, very young, dynamic. Sadly, his spouse, well, excitedly for him, his spouse is pregnant and they're expecting their first child. That kind of takes you out of the equation. So although I was looking for a younger generation, it turns out that I'm a week younger than Mike Farnworth, so I'm the younger generation I was looking for.
I know Mike.
Yes, as do I, as does Harry, as does Gwen. And Mike is a great guy, and he's such a great guy that when he looked at the team that I had assembled, a leadership team, he said, we don't need to fight with each other for the next 6 months. So imagine if I was talking to you today with 3 more months left in a leadership fight that would have been between Mike and I. 2 friends, we've known each other for 25 years. There's not much to separate the two of us. I've got about a dozen hairs more on the top of my head than he does, and as I say, I'm the younger of the two. So there's really not a lot to separate us in terms of policy. We've been around the NDP for a long time. Mike elected longer than I, but we've been together fighting for a better British Columbia for 25 years. So Mike decided to get on board, and the acclamation came forward on the 1st of May. And this is also the good news. David Barrett, you'll remember him, acclaimed leader, next election, Premier of British Columbia. Mike Harcourt, claimed leader, next election, Premier of British Columbia. I look for themes and trends in my life as an Irishman, and I just want to say that John Horgan, acclaimed leader, next election 2017, I'm hopeful that we're going to be winning the city of Hope. I think it's important to say, we're also recreating provincial office. And did anyone get a letter that had my name on the front of it saying that their membership was no longer in good standing? I apologize. I apologize for that. And I do so because I was in Selmo during the Kootenays a month back, and a woman came to meet me at a coffee shop in Selmo. Well, I was going to say the coffee shop, but there are several coffee shops, but the one to be in, and that's where Michelle Mongel took me. And this woman came over 2 valleys to come and tell me how angry she was that after 40 years of supporting the NDP, she gets a letter. It wasn't actually from me, it was from an organizer for provincial office, but my name was on the envelope, and that's all that mattered, because she opened it up and it said, right off the top, you are no longer in good standing. She legitimately, appropriately, was absolutely disappointed in our party. That only contact she had after debilitating defeat was, you are out of line, send me more money. So I want to say that one of the most important things I believe I can do and we can do within our political structures is modernize and start treating our members not just as an instant teller machine, but as a place to get ideas and a place to build enthusiasm in neighborhoods. We don't need a big war chest to talk to our neighbors about why we need to change the government. We often do that for nothing. So I'm going to be changing the culture there with the help of our newly elected President, Craig Keating. He's been on the job for a couple of months more than me, so give us some time. And if you do get that awkward piece of mail or that phone call that really annoys you, please, I want you to push back. Don't give up. And the grateful thing for me is this woman in Selmo, after a half an hour, we were best of friends. But I can't talk to 1,000 people who got those letters except by asking at the start of these discussions if anyone got them. So my apology, please don't take it personally. You don't have it in your pocket, do you? Okay, good. So that's the plan. The plan is to put modern techniques in place at provincial office. It's to attract younger people. Seamus is with me as my press secretary, under 30. We're trying to bring as many young people into our movement as we possibly can. The good news about that is, what the Liberals are selling, young people aren't buying. And I was in 150 Mile House with Duncan Barnett, our candidate from that region. He's a rancher. He's a modern rancher. He uses techniques that we spent more time than I ever thought I would spend talking about ranching, about how he's raising his cattle and trying to be different than the other farmers in the valley. He doesn't hay, for example. And I thought that you can't be a rancher unless you hay. And he says, no, you need to have some hay, but you can graze your cattle in different ways and use different techniques. That's what he's doing. And he had a host of young people. There were 4 or 5 people under the age of 22 that were helping him on his ranch. We sat around the kitchen table in a very exciting discussion with these young people engaged. And it was interesting that it wasn't so much the policies that were interesting to those kids, it was presentation. And they look at their news in a different way than the rest of us do. We pick up our paper and we slowly go through it, reading the stories, trying to digest the information. We get it off the news on television, and we listen to the radio at the top of the hour to see what's going on. Young people aren't picking up information that way anymore. They're getting it from their phones. They're getting it from their laptops or their iPads. And they're selecting where they want to get the information and what information they want to digest. Again, we need to have young people bringing that forward so we can bring young people in. I have a lifetime member in my constituency, Kay Mitchell, who's the wife of Frank Mitchell, who was elected in 1950, who was also one of the people who came up to me and said, "You're not old, Mr. Horgan, I'm old." And so he was elected literally 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And Kay said, I knew how to bring young people in when I was organizing in the 50s and 60s and 70s. But we need younger people to bring young people in. And so her grandchildren are now organizing in my area, and they're bringing their friends to the table, and that's how they want to engage. They want to engage on their terms, not on our terms. So we have to be mindful that although we have all of these ideas we want to download onto them, if I could use some high-tech language, they want to upload their ideas to us. And it's no longer the kids are at the kids' table. I believe that when we meet in convention, we have to have the young people mixed with, that young New Democrats shouldn't be in the corner by themselves. They should be in the middle of the operation, giving us the direction we need so that we can win the next election. Harry, tell me to stop talking.
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. I think I'll leave it to that and say, again, thanks for coming out. I'm absolutely delighted to answer any questions you might have about where we're going, how we're going to get there. But more than anything, I just want to thank you for coming out on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock to spend some time with me. I greatly appreciate that. So thanks very much.